We're now joined by the new head coach of the Regina Rams, Mike Gibson. Mike, a belated welcome to the Canada West.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here and glad to be in this league.
Mike, you have a pro background coming off of several stints in the Canadian Football League. So I think a lot of people don't think necessarily about a coach with a pro background putting academics first. But from all reports that I've got, academics has been at the forefront of what you do there. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, you're right. I came from the CFL the last 12 years, but prior to that, I was in the NCAA down in the States for 21 years. So my background is college football. And I just feel very strongly that the young people we have in this program, if they do well academically in the classroom, they'll be better football players on the field. And that's not one problem I want to have to deal with is academics. So I'm trying to stay on top of it and trying to make the importance of those young men realize how important it is. And I'm very happy with how we did this past semester. And, I just think that if good things happen there off the field, good things are going to happen on the field. So that's where we're going to start.
I guess it doesn't hurt having a reminder like Brett Jones, who was an academic All-Canadian, now in an NFL camp, as a guy to remind players on your roster just how important academics is and how it can actually play into a football career as well.
No doubt about it. That young man is still around here. He just came back from the Giants camp, so he's around working out with our players now. And prior to going to the Giants camp, he was in school here, actually in the winter semester. And so they understand, and he's a great role model and a great example for him.
Now, I hate to throw out that term culture change, but when you have a guy like Frank McChrystal that was the head coach for 31 years there, and you come in as the new guy, there is going to be somewhat of a shift. I don't think it's seismic when you consider some of the support staff you have and a lot of the returning players. How have you gone about putting your own stamp on this program through spring camp and as we go into this season?
Well, I think we've done a lot of things differently, and that's not saying anything was wrong with how things were done here in the past, but when you have a new leader of the ship, so to speak, I am going to do things differently. I might be holding them more accountable for their actions on and off the field. I may be making them realize the importance of certain things that weren't maybe emphasized in the past, but at the end of the day, this is not Mike Gibson's football team. This is a football team of those players in that locker room, and I just happen to be the guy who has to make some tough decisions at certain times. As stated earlier, my background is college football. I was around some great college football coaches in the United States and some great coaches in the CFL. So I'm sure that the way I do things on the field, off the field, were different. And, again, that's not saying the way Frank did it was wrong. It's just my way of doing it and my expectations. I say all the time to these players, there's two things we can control, and that's our attitude and our effort. I'm not sure about the ability in Can West. There's good football teams up and down. I'm not sure where we rate ability-wise. But I promise you at the end of the day that this football team is going to give great effort and going to have a great attitude about doing it. And those young men who are still with us, we started back January 5th, our first meeting. I told the team not everyone in the room that night is going to be with us going into fall camp, and I was true in that. But the guys who are with us are the guys who have bought in, and the way I want things done, my expectations, and the way I want this program to be known and what I want it to be known for.
Talk to us a bit about some of those coaches that you mentioned that were big influences on your career, and what did you take away from some of these individuals?
Well, I'll start most recent to the past. John Huffnagel, I worked for 3 years, and John Huffnagel is a very demanding coach, but at the same time very fair to the players, and he's always looking out for the players. He wants to make sure that those players are healthy when it counts, and that's game time and at the end of the season. So I think I've learned a lot of way to run a practice and the way I want to run a practice, and I modeled that after John. I was with Ken Austin here in Saskatchewan in 2007 when we won the Grey Cup, and I learned the importance of just the details, the minute things that people overlook sometimes. Kent, and he's doing the same thing in Hamilton now. I mean, he was a stickler for the details. But if I go back to my college days, I mean, names that may not be too familiar up here, but I worked for a gentleman named Terry Shea, and Terry Shea had worked for Bill Walsh, at Stanford. And so Bill Walsh and Terry are both great offensive minds, and hopefully I learned a lot of offense, from Terry and the way he did things. I worked for a guy named Ricky Bussell. Ricky Bussell was an offensive coordinator at Virginia Tech, and Virginia Tech was a very good program when he was there, and he later became a head coach, and I worked for him. And the thing I learned from Ricky was just, treat people like you would like, to be treated yourself. And everybody's not the same. You don't treat everybody the same, as far as certain people are motivated in a certain way and other people are motivated in another way. So I learned those aspects. I mean, I can go way back to my first head coaching, or my first job was for a head coach by the name of Bob Blackman. And Coach Blackman was a very, very successful coach in the United States. And I got him at the end of his career. He was, an older gentleman, and I was wet beyond the years, 2 years old, just out of college myself. The importance of work, as a football coach. People talk about this being a grind job and, just the hours, but really and truthfully, if you like what you're doing, you don't look at the clock, you just go about doing it. And, I've been very fortunate. I'm a little bit older than your normal head coaches probably in this league, getting their first opportunity, but the only job I've ever held is a football coach. So I enjoy the grind and enjoy the process.
One of the things that you said when you took the job is that you wanted to put a fence up around southern Saskatchewan in terms of recruiting. I think with a bit of the late start that you had, you were still kind of out buying the barbed wire and the fence posts in terms of putting a full recruiting year in. What's your approach been to recruiting with really a 2/3 or a partial off season of recruiting? And what's your approach going forward into 2016?
We recruit every day. Okay, that's our approach. We're going to recruit every day. There's not a day goes by that we don't do something in relationship to recruiting. You're right, we did get started a little late, but I'm very proud of the prospects that we signed. We announced a class of 17 signees this year, a number of them from Saskatchewan. We went to Ontario to get a few, and we actually went to the United States to sign a couple. So, I felt that even with the late start, we had a good recruiting class. It's only going to get better and better the more time we're here, and I'm happy with our results so far for the 2016 and even 2017 recruiting classes that we're working on right now. Recruiting is all about relationships, and that's what we're out doing. We're out building relationships. I can't tell you how many functions I've been at, to speak at, to shake hands. I just want to get my face around and people to get to know me, because this is a great product we have here. I'm very proud of this university. Regina is a great football town, and I think we have a lot to offer a person academically, and hopefully the product on the field shows we have a lot to offer from a football standpoint.
I've heard the stories from 26 other coaches across the country, though, from time to time about what a grind recruiting is in Canada, at least more and more every year, because of the level of competition, and really it's a wide open plane for coaches to work on. You must have got some sort of feedback in around the task force and talking to other coaches about recruiting in this country. How does it compare to your days in college in the United States? And are there any concerns about having to pace oneself in terms of recruiting?
Well, and I don't mean this in any disrespect, but recruiting here is probably like it was in the NCAA 30 years ago. And in other words, what I mean is there's not really a lot of regulations. And to be honest with you, I'd like them to be more regulations than there are to make it an even playing field. But I know the cards that were dealt, and so we'll grind away at it, and we'll work at it every day. It's very different from what the NCAA is today, but at the same time, I know what it is, and there's some good people in this conference, in this league, and as well as in the CIS in general, who I've reached out to and made some calls to and talked to, just in regards to how they do things. And so I feel like that we'll be fine in that regard, and we'll work at it just as hard as anybody else is going to work at it. And again, it's all about relationships. We're trying to create those relationships with the coaches, with the families, with the people in minor football throughout Saskatchewan, and we'll be fine. We'll be fine. Recruiting will take care of itself, because as hard as everybody else works, we're going to work just as hard, maybe another step harder.
Now, you've got the Canada West all-time leading career receiver to help you put together an offense in Mark McConkey. I would expect that there may be some adjustments on offense, and everyone can look forward usually to a year where the Regina Rams put up the ball into the air about 3 to 4 to 1 in comparison to the running game. I would think there might be somewhat of a more conventional shift back to the running game with what you do moving forward. Do we expect to see more of a guy like Atlee Simon coming out of the running back position? And what should we expect from a guy like Noah Picton, who was arguably the best rookie that came off the bench anywhere in Canada this past year?
Well, and you're right. This place has always been known to throw the football quite a bit, and I believe in Canadian three-down football, you have to throw the ball. But I know one thing, that if you're light in the box against us, we're going to run the football. If you're going to play the pass, we're going to run the football, because I think we have the people, the running backs here to run the football. I like our offensive line, but Noah's a weapon within himself. And so if we can establish the run, and if you're concerned about us running, you load up the box, and that's exactly what I want you to do. But, we'll be a little bit more balanced. I'm not going to say we're going to be 50-50 or anything like that, but we will run the football to make people play us honest. And then once they have to start playing us honest, then we're going to let Noah do his thing. But they go hand in hand. I don't believe you can be one-dimensional and be successful. I know one thing, and when you want to be good is at the end of the year, and the weather in Western Canada at the end of the year can be something that you have to deal with. And if we can run the football with consistency, and, I'm not so much concerned with what we average running the football. I want us to be very consistent and very efficient running the football. And if we're efficient running the football, then we're going to be just fine.
That's a great point, because if you take a look at the stats across the CIS, the teams who are there in November winning games are always the one with the great rushing stats and the great running game and the great running defense. And switching over to the defensive side, what's your view on the defense that you inherit?
Well, I believe that Paul Dawson's our defensive coordinator, who I kept, on staff. Paul's an excellent football coach, and I think we've surrounded him with some other good football coaches that will help him and help our defense. I know we probably gave up a lot of points last year, but I think they went hand in hand. I think we control the ball a little bit more. Maybe our best defense is our offense staying on the field. And that's nothing against our defense, but the limited amount they have to be on the field, they can be fresh, they can be attacking. We're gonna switch our style a little bit. We're gonna attack more on defense. That's two-edged. I mean, sometimes you give up the big play, but you create the big plays as well. And we're through spring practice, I'm preaching turnovers. We've got to create turnovers on defense, and we've got to protect the ball on offense. And if we can do those two things, I think history will show that those teams are pretty successful. So that's what we're going to try to do on defense, and we're going to try to protect it on offense.
Lastly, in your time in the Canadian Football League, running up to this tenure that you have with the Regina Rams, you must have seen a curve of improvement from CIS athletes coming in to the Canadian Football League. I think over the last decade may have been the most dramatic improvement for the athletes that were coming out of Canadian college football. What did you know of the Canada West, though, as a league coming into this job? And what have you learned just in the last few years about the teams that you're going to face and the level of athlete that's here?
Well, Can West, I'm biased now that I'm here, obviously. I think this is the best football conference. When I was in the CFL, we always did our off-season studies as far as talent, and, we were looking at players, and, good football players came out of Can West. And so I believe that they're very well coached. I believe football is important in Canada West, and I believe that shows by the type of athletes you have and the coaches you have and the time that they put into it and everything. That's not saying that football in the other parts of this country aren't good, but, I think that if you win this league, or if you get into the playoffs from this league, you have a legitimate chance to win the whole thing. And Brian Dobie at Manitoba, to Wayne Harris now in Calgary, to all these coaches, they're good football coaches, and they put in the time, and it shows on the film you watched. I mean, I've watched a lot of film since I've been here. These are well-coached teams. I didn't look so much at them schematically in the past as I was just looking at them personnel-wise. Schematically, they're very sound. I mean, these are good coaches who know what they're doing. So every week should be a challenge, and we're looking forward to it. And we hope at the end of the season that we're in the mix and that we can have some say in what happens out here.
Coach Gibson, we're looking forward to see what kind of surprises we see out of the new Regina Rams football team in this upcoming season. Best of luck with it, and we look forward to seeing you as we move to our game of the week on Shaw and Access.
Well, thank you very much for the time. Available anytime, and this will be a program to keep an eye on, I promise you. Thank you very much.